What do you want to be known and remembered for?
That is a really good question. I think I want to be known and remembered as a person who made people believe that they were capable of accomplishing their dreams. Because I feel like there's so many naysayers out there, and there's so many people, so many reasons why people can't do stuff. I actually got started in cybersecurity through the military, which is a really weird avenue to go through, but it worked out really well. I am autistic and have ADHD, so I have a lot of challenges that some other people may not have, or some people may relate, but it just really makes learning cybersecurity an adventure.
Wow. Amazing. And then when you were joining the military, did you know that it was going to be in the cyber unit, or did you think it was going to be something else?
Yes, I knew it was going to be in the cyber unit, but originally I joined wanting to be a hacker. But unfortunately for me, that's not really an entry-level position, which I learned the hard way.
But when it comes to cryptography, it's kind of a gray area, and it's a gray area for many people. What is being a cryptographer? What does that entail?
Usually for the military, what you would do is encrypt all the communication. So every aircraft that flies, it has encryption codes that it pings out to identify people, whether they're a friend or a foe.
If you could do this again with the intent of going into cybersecurity, would you take the same path, or would you change it up? What would you do?
I would change it. I would definitely change it. I think that the path that I took was the most practical. I got amazing experience. It was great. But morality-wise, I'm not that person anymore.
Hello everyone, welcome to the show. Today I'm joined by Addie LaMarr. She is a cybersecurity professional and ethical hacker with really an incredible background. So Addie has worked in the military in the cyber defense teams across England and Japan. She has over 15 years of industry and working experience, and Addie also runs her own company. So Addie shares openly about neurodivergence and being different in the industry, and also having different options and paths of getting into cybersecurity. She brings a completely unique and powerful perspective to the world of cybersecurity, showing how being different can actually be a strength.
This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated with Cyber Queen, where we break barriers one chat at a time. No one has the exact roadmap, but together we're challenging stereotypes. We'll show you that cybersecurity is for everyone. We're bold, smart, and unapologetically diverse.
So Addie, I am so excited to have you here on the show. Thank you for joining and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to get into this and talk to you about cybersecurity and neurodivergence.
Awesome. So I think first up, the one question I want to ask is, I've seen you online. I know you as this cool and fun and almost colorful person, just purely based on the type of content you're sharing. But if you can tell me a little bit about who is Addie, the cool things, the weird things, the nerdy things. And by the way, we love weird over here. So
Perfect.
Yeah, everything is fair game.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Addie. I actually got started in cybersecurity through the military, which is a really weird avenue to go through, but it worked out really well. I am autistic and have ADHD, so I have a lot of challenges that some other people may not have, or some people may relate, but it just really makes learning cybersecurity an adventure. You kind of have to get into figuring out what learning styles you have. It's more of just an exciting path. So I have spent 14 years in cybersecurity, 7 of those years in the military, and then 2 of those working for the government at the Department of Justice as a contractor before I left and did my own thing working in the crypto sphere. So cryptocurrencies and stuff, I worked on several project teams there where I did a lot of security stuff as well as help doing all the other stuff. So every single experience that I've had has given me kind of insights into the things I love and the things that I don't really love about cybersecurity. But those things brought me to starting my own company where I'm kind of trying to be a little bit of a cyber doula, if you will, and trying to be able to usher different kinds of people into cybersecurity as well. Because there's a ton of the tech bros, but I think there needs to be more people who are open and authentic about who they are and their differences.
I don't know about you, but I'm often Googling myself. Call it curiosity, but I'm usually shocked by the amount of data that's out there about me, especially stuff from years ago. You guys, there are over 525 pieces of personal information out there for each of us, and this data is often available for as little as $5. Yes, I am a conscious cybersecurity content creator, but it's not just my social media profiles, which I know are public. It's personal details, things that I didn't even realize were publicly accessible. The information you find when you intentionally try to look up yourself is not just limited to names. There's so much more: your address, phone number, even family details. Our lives are exposed, and we may be putting family members or colleagues at risk because of this. This is where the sponsor of this episode comes in, DeleteMe. I started using DeleteMe, which is a service that helps you to remove personal information from the internet. It was honestly so easy to sign up, to build my profile, and then get started. So DeleteMe helps you to manage and protect your digital footprint. They get your data removed directly from the data brokers, and for me, it's been removed from sites that I had no idea even existed. So once you sign up, you get access to your personal dashboard. You complete your own data sheet so that they have all your information and can start populating everything they find about you on the internet. Every month you'll get a privacy report, and what I really like is that directly in the dashboard, 3 weeks after each removal, you can search for your data again and keep an eye on your progress. So DeleteMe has been kind enough to give me a code for 20% off their consumer plans when you visit joindeleteme.com/cyberqueen and use the promo code cyberqueen at checkout. You can also scan the QR code on screen if you're watching on a TV. Trust me, it's worth the peace of mind. Friends, take control of your privacy before someone else does. I absolutely love that. I love that. And I love the diverse perspective you bring, because it really is that, right? It is so valuable having all of the different diverse people into security. And the reality is that so many people don't know that this is an option. Like, so many people who are different and unique, and they haven't figured out their learning style yet, or they haven't figured out, their preferred way of going about studying and learning and education, and they don't know that this is an option. So I absolutely love that. But let's dive a little bit deeper into your experience in starting in the military, because you started in the military when you were just 19, right? How did that
18.
happen? 18, yes. Wow.
Yes.
How did that happen? And yeah.
So it's kind of a funny story, because I come from, I probably wouldn't make the same choices now as an adult, but where I come from is a place that really views the military really in very high regards. And so you kind of think that you're going to go there and you're actually going to be saving the world and stuff. The idea of joining the military was that of kind of not really practicality, but it's a really good idea to join the military if you're in a low income area, or if you don't have a ton of options, where you don't want to get loaded up with a ton of debt whenever you graduate from university. It's a really good option for people who want to gain college experience while they're going through training and getting paid for the experience. So that was a big part of why I joined. I thought that I would be traveling the world, which I did, which was really amazing, getting experience at the same time, and while doing something that actually made a difference in the world. And sometimes our beliefs when we're 18 are a little bit different than they are whenever you grow and see things. But I still think that choice was, I guess it was one of the best decisions I made, to get into cybersecurity that way and get exposed to all those really cool things. The idea of joining was more of hey, I think this is a really practical idea, and I think that this will make a difference in the world. I'm very much driven by a purpose and making a difference in places. So I thought that was one of the best routes to take at the time.
Wow. Amazing. And then when you were joining the military, did you know that it was going to be in the cyber unit, or did you think it was going to be something else?
Yes, I knew it was going to be in the cyber unit, but originally I joined wanting to be a hacker. But unfortunately for me, that's not really an entry-level position, which I learned the hard way. So I ended up going in being a cryptographer, also doing this thing called ComSec, as well as information assurance. So I did a lot of things that would overlap with governance, risk, and compliance type stuff there. It was great.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about being a cryptographer, right? Because At least for me, my background is in network security, security engineering, kind of configuration, those things. But when it comes to cryptography, it's kind of a gray area, and it's a gray area for many people. So what is being a cryptographer? What does that entail? What did you do?
So usually for the military, what you would do is encrypt all the communication. So every aircraft that flies, it has encryption codes that it like pings out to identify people, whether they're a friend or a foe. And that's actually what prevents planes from getting shot down. So you have a lot of these cryptographic keys that you actually have to load into equipment, into phones. You have to make sure that all the operations are using those encrypted communications. For example, like if you have a pararescue men go out on a rescue mission, their radios will have to be encrypted because you can't just have special operations just over the air unencrypted. For them to be able to communicate with each other, every radio has to have crypto loaded on it. Every plane has to have crypto loaded on it, as well as you have to go around to all of those sub-accounts and make sure that they are in compliance with all these really strict rules. So a lot of what it had to do, because cryptography for the military is very different than encryption for other people. So most of it was just operational things and making sure that the fighter jets had the things to communicate with each other and make sure that the mission was able to go on and it was able to be achieved. So that was a lot of it. A lot of it would be similar to probably the work of what an ISSO does, or maybe somebody who is going around doing assessments, because twice a year, we would have to go out to all 35 sub-accounts that we had, because we controlled all the cryptographic keys for all of those missions. Each one has its individual mission. And we would go around and do inventories and check their compliance and just do these whole assessments twice a year. It was a lot of work. But it was really fun, really worthwhile to do that. Very cool.
That's very cool. And I mean, that probes a question in my mind, because I think so many people think that you have to be in a specific role or at a specific level to make an impact and make a difference in cybersecurity. But I mean, that's really not the case, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that anybody in any role can make a huge difference, because every role is necessary for the bigger picture and the mission. So every single person has to be doing their job for the whole thing to be a success. So it doesn't matter how big or how small or where you are in your chain of command, everybody's effort is worthwhile and everybody's role is important to get whatever it needs to be done completed.
It's a team sport. Security is absolutely a team sport. Whether you're in everybody knows about the red team, blue team, whether you're in whichever team, you need kind of to function together if you really want to move things forward and make an impact. And even the most junior SOC analyst or cryptographer is important in this chain of security.
Yes, and sometimes they're the most important in the chain of security, because since they're new eyes, they don't understand why things are done the way they are. And sometimes those newbies are the ones to raise the important questions to get everyone thinking, why do we do it this way? So I think newbies are the most untapped resource in cybersecurity that people need to listen to a lot more.
Yeah, I agree with that. But what would you then say to newbies? Because you have a lot of newbies that have a lack of confidence, right? And they have very different thoughts and very different opinions, but they don't often share them. What would you say to newbies coming into the industry?
I love this question because I have so much to say to them. But first and foremost is that you are capable. It doesn't matter what everybody says about how difficult cyber is or tech is. You can do it. It might be a little bit more difficult for you, but you can figure it out. And a lot of the times, people like to overstate its difficulty because a lot of people, honestly, it's ego. They get their whole personal value from their job. And in order to preserve that sense of self, they have to gatekeep and keep other people from figuring out that it's actually not that hard and that other people, especially other demographics, can definitely do it. So the first thing that I have to say is don't listen to the tech bros. The second is that being a beginner is one of the greatest things you can be. You have the ability to learn. You have the ability to try things and experiment. And if things don't work out, that's okay. You have the ability to make mistakes and ask questions. And most of the time, people won't really judge you for it. And if they do, they're not great people, because you shouldn't be judging beginners. But you should definitely use the opportunity of being a beginner to just learn as much as you can, like be a sponge, ask questions. People will be really willing to go out of their way to assist you. I really think that you just have to do it scared. It can be scary, and a lot of people just think like, oh no, I don't think I'm smart enough to do this. I thought that too. And honestly, I drowned for the first 2 years of my career, but it was worth it because all you have to do is keep taking a step every single day, do whatever it is that's on your list of tasks, and just keep moving forward. You can't start overanalyzing how difficult it's going to be and how long it's going to take to get where you want to be, because the time is going to pass anyways. So all that matters is what you're doing in that meantime.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I resonate with so many things that you've said there. And I think it's so valuable that I truly believe that for a beginner, maybe in any industry, but I mean, I'm biased to security, right? So more so in cybersecurity, I think it's so important that learning to speak up and share your opinion as a beginner should almost be addressed as a skill, right? It should be like a skill as you come into the workplace. Learn how to share your opinion and share your knowledge, because at the end of the day, so many professionals are looking for that, because you have professionals that's been in there for years, and yes, they're veterans and they know what they're doing for sure. Nobody argues that, but they welcome new perspectives and new opinions. And like you said, people who don't, they're just strange people. We ignore them and we move on with our lives, and we still share our opinions and thoughts. Absolutely. So then I want to ask you, so now we talk about sharing different opinions and having different ways and methods. How about methods of getting into cybersecurity, right? Because a lot of people try to ring fence this topic. A lot of people try to show people there's a single way or one path or something, but it's not really like that, is it?
No, it definitely isn't. And I honestly think that the nature of work is changing now to where beginners who do take that advice that you were saying, like learning to communicate, are going to do so much better in their roles. They're going to have so many more opportunities for getting that attention that they need. Since work is changing now, that there are all these ghost roles that people are advertising, where they aren't even actual roles. It's just to make some of the employees think that they can, if they work harder, they'll get a raise. That's something that I actually learned about pretty recently. But that's something that people in the job market now are having to overcome, as well as a lot of outsourcing. So beginners, they kind of have this thing where they just really need to make themselves hyper visible. And so if you're a beginner, you can actually use that to your advantage, and you can start creating content. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to be 10% ahead of the people that you're trying to help. And you have to make it known that you're a beginner. But if you start doing that, it will definitely help get more eyes on you. So the roles and stuff will come to you instead of you having to apply to all these things that may or may not actually be real roles for companies that may or may not actually be hiring. And you just don't really waste your time as much. So I think that skill is one of the best skills to learn early on, communicating with the people in your chain of command, as well as being able to communicate these complex technical topics in an easy to understand way.
Yeah. And I mean, creating content really does help with that, right? Because you have to speak to a diverse audience. And at least one thing I learned on my journey was I thought I was simplifying it, but then the audience I was speaking to, they were like, what are you even saying? And I was like, oh, okay, simpler than that. But I mean, how do you approach that? And how do you find the balance between being as maybe, technical and knowledgeable as you are, but then breaking it down into simple concepts for people to understand?
Yes. So I love this because this is one of my favorite exercises to do. I believe it was either Einstein or Feynman that said, I think it was Einstein, if you actually understand something, you can explain it in the simplest terms possible. And so for myself, I take a lot of notes. I have my second brain system, and I publish those notes online. And I don't really like to tone those down for people because you need the technical concepts in a wiki. But whenever you're actually explaining the concepts to people, you need to find analogies that you can relate it to things that they can understand. For example, I can't remember this example. I had one the other day that I came up with. I felt was a really good way to explain it, but it's not coming to me right now. But anyways, One of the ways that I like to really simplify it is to read through it and see if there's any buzzword or if there's any kind of like jargon or vocabulary that I could simplify itself. So most of the time, whenever I deliver information in my deep dive newsletters, because those are tailored specifically for people who are kind of like new to technology or not really cyber professionals, I will also use ChatGPT to help me. Like if I feel like it's still too complex, I'll be like, hey, how can I explain this in a way that's easier to understand, or like with an analogy or some sort of like colorful thing that people would actually be able to remember.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And you just probed a thought in my mind. Let's talk a little bit about your second brain and your note-taking system,
Okay.
right? Because I mean, you're pretty proficient in this. I've seen some of the stuff that you share online, but you have a whole system. And I forget the app that you use. Which one is it? And how does this work for you? Obsidian. Yeah,
Yes.
That's the one.
Yes. So actually, I think that I've been required to use Obsidian because I have memory issues. Like I have a little form of amnesia. I have like autism and ADHD. So like if it's not written down where I can see it and where I can like retrieve it, it doesn't exist to me anymore. So this is literally a second brain. I've taken all of my knowledge, all of my notes, all of the things that I'm interested in, and I've just written it down in this one area, and I have organized it contextually so that it's a little bit more than just having knowledge, because most of the time knowledge just feels kind of like a flat hierarchy where there's not really any organization. Like you go through a class and you learn the topics in order, and then that's just how they're organized. What I like to do is take concepts and build the hierarchy. So I'll manually code the things like below. So if you have like the CIA triad, if you had under that, there would be like confidentiality, availability, and integrity. And those would be sorted, but they fall under it. So you could see where it fits in the big scheme of things. And then under that, there would be other like authentication mechanisms and other ways to check that. But it's a good way, I found, especially to show beginners, because whenever they come into my second brain and they just go through the wiki, it's just already sorted in a hierarchy that's easy to follow. And you can see what things are inside of things and what things are outside of other things. So it's really nice. But I got started doing this a few years ago because I have such awful memory problems. I needed a way to keep up with all of my projects, and I wanted to start writing more, and I needed just a place to dump all of my ideas. So I got started with Notion, and it worked for a little bit until it didn't. I'm a super user, so I use this all day, every day for everything. I completely organize my entire life in it. So sometimes I refer to it as the second brain. Sometimes I refer to it as a life operating system. But I started.
Love that.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great, especially if you just start it by doing like monthly reviews, daily reviews, monthly goals. That's kind of how I did it. I got into it by defining what my core values were and trying to relate those to the goals that I was setting and my yearly OKRs. I'm like incredibly organized, not because I am naturally, but because of the ADHD and the autism. If I do not do this every time, nothing will be able to be found. So this has been honestly a huge disability aid for me. It is like if I were to get in a car accident tomorrow and have amnesia, I would still be able to do all of my work because everything that is in my head is on the paper as well. I use it. Wow. I actually write poetry. I make art. I keep it all in there and in Obsidian.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. I love that. And I think especially in an industry like cybersecurity, I mean, there are so many things that you have to know and learn and update on a continuous basis. Like it's even for someone who I think has a good memory, it's still a challenge. It's such a big challenge, not equally so, but I mean, still like just being in this industry is a challenge for the amount of information that we have to consume on a daily basis.
Yes, absolutely. And retrieving that information is even harder because I know a lot of people who are very meticulous about taking notes, but whenever it's time to like refer back to them, they can't find where it is or they can't find the specific thing that they need. And I really love Obsidian because it has this very in-depth search feature. So if you learn I think it's JavaScript, if you learn a little bit of JavaScript or like some query parameters. That's not my field house, so I don't know if I'm using the proper terminology here, but it becomes very, very easy to search every note you've ever made. So the information recall becomes much easier as well.
Fascinating. That is fascinating. So now I want to talk a little bit more about the neurodivergent aspect. But before we do that, I want to go into some rapid fire questions for you here. Okay. So these are how it works. These are rapid fire. So it's kind of like sometimes it's just a tool based answer. Sometimes it's an answer this or that with a reason. But it's kind of rapid fire, personal, tooling, cybersecurity, all of that. Right? All right, let's go. So since you are into hacking right now, what's your favorite hacking tool?
Aircrack NG. And I'm gonna give a disclaimer on this one because some people will call me a script kiddie for it. But Aircrack NG is kind of like the more basic version of Wi-Fi hacking tools, and it causes you to actually go through the manual process of doing a deauthentication attack and knocking Wi-Fi networks off. So I like that one over Wi-Fi, which other people will definitely disagree with me there. But Aircrack NG, OG.
Okay, got it. And then red team or blue team, and why?
Blue team and then red team, because it's way easier to red team after you've blue team.
Okay. I fully agree with that, by the way. Fully agree. But I mean, I dabbled in red team for a small little bit, and then I'm like, no, I will stick to my life. So if you could compromise, target, or hack into any kind of fictional system without consequences, which would it be? Yeah, and why?
Fictional system?
Or any system, but without consequences, right? What would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I would definitely try to hack into a system that broadcasts information to every person on the planet. I would want to have the power of persuasion. I would just want to have a way to speak to everyone.
Whoa, I like this. I love how you just thought of that on the spot, like you need the power of persuasion. Love it. Okay, so when you have a long working day or you're like in front of your computer all day, what is your go-to snack?
Oh, so I'm a huge health nut, so I really love these special like I love protein shakes, so that's like the first thing I eat. But then I have these like special healthy cookies. They're like a Mexican brand because I live in Mexico. I don't exactly know what they're called, but they are delicious and they're super healthy and they're very high in protein. I think they're like flaxseed cookies or something like that. Very good.
Okay, cool. And then are you a morning person or a night owl?
I am a morning person through and through. I will never, ever, ever be a night owl. Like I'm the person who willingly wakes up. Like when I was in the Air Force, I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the gym before I went to work. Now, whenever I'm working for myself, I just choose to wake up at 5:30 a.m., go to sleep at 8:30 p.m., and I just love it. I would have it no other way.
Amazing. No, yeah, opposite of me there, I can tell you that one. When it comes to, there's a lot of buzzwords and a lot of new industry technologies here. So when it comes to AI, quantum computing, which one do you find more fascinating and why?
Okay, so quantum computing is more fascinating to me because my other dream, aside from working in tech, is to be a physicist. So I have been following all sorts of physics for several years. I actually wanted to go to university to be a physicist, but instead I actually went to university for business management in IT. So not even cyber related, but quantum computing is so cool to me because it's going to completely change everything. Like we've seen AI come in and yes, it is changing things, but it's not changing them on the scale and causing people to like reassess security the same way that quantum computing will. Because if we have these new, I guess NIST has actually come out with the new post-quantum cryptography algorithms, and we're going to start implementing them soon, but that's going to change everything about encryption that we know, because a lot of our encryption keys are like, they work because it takes a whole lot of computational power to factor the primes. And so once we have the quantum computers come in, that's going to change everything. And so something interesting also is that a lot of governments are already implementing the post-quantum cryptography because they're worried about like adversaries or something just collecting their currently encrypted information, and they'll just decrypt it later. So they're like storing it. So I'm really excited to see the changes that quantum cryptography brings to like quantum computing.
Yeah. I mean, it's super fascinating. I think right now there's a lot of talk and pivot, especially from like cybersecurity and cloud security. I mean, I work in cloud security, so into the AI space. But quantum computing from a security perspective, from a cryptography perspective, it's fascinating. It changes everything, right? On the scale of encryption and cryptography. So it's just massive. And it's been amazing to see over the last couple of years, the ramp up behind the scenes of kind of preparing for this, right? Preparing for the supercomputers, preparing for the what ifs. Because like you're saying, I think, so if you're in the industry and if you're in this space, we know so many things that happens like behind the scenes, like you're saying, with the different state agencies and governments, like already starting to change their encryption and cryptography methods and keys because of the fact that it could have been harvested and then it can be encrypted at the time when we're there. So definitely fascinating. I think AI could move for right now, but in the long run, quantum computing definitely is going to be super. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Then last rapid fire question here. Okay. What is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to cybersecurity and the industry?
Oh, gatekeepers. Easy. I hate gatekeepers. I cannot stand people who are rude to beginners. I can't stand people who exclude people and try to feel superior with their own knowledge. I do not like people who step on others to make themselves in a higher place. And honestly, I have a second pet peeve with cybersecurity, but I don't know if I should go into this because it's more of a rant. I will.
Rant. We like it.
Okay. So I really don't like how cybersecurity a lot of the times protects corporations and businesses at the expense of its users. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. And like the fact that whenever there is a breach and people's information is leaked out, they just have to pay a fine. And maybe the fine to them is just a cost of doing business. Like they know they're going to break that rule and they can just pay like, I don't know, $10 million and then get out of it. They've made like $300 million by doing it. So what's the point of them actually securing their systems? So that's a huge pet peeve for me. And I feel like there needs to be way harsher repercussions for companies and corporations who leak people's information.
Yeah, I mean, what a great perspective, right? Because it is that discussion of kind of the overall carrying of the risk. Like, I mean, if a massive corporation only has a $10 million fine for a compromise, but it's going to take them $15 million maybe to implement adequate security to protect the information, then they rather accept the fine for 10 million and, just leave things as is. So what a great perspective and argument. I love that.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about a little bit more about being neurodiverse in the industry, right? So one of the key questions that I have here is how have you figured out, which ways have you figured out to help you to cope with this and, to remember this and to overcome kind of the being neurodivergent in the industry?
Mm-hmm. So I've had to do a ton of experimentation. I've tried nearly everything that people have recommended to me just to see what works for me personally. So I love being an experimenter and I just always will execute and then figure out if it was right first. I don't like to wait around and research and learn and then dive in. I just dive in immediately. And so I feel like that's the easiest way to figure out what works for you is by figuring out what doesn't. It was a whole lot of trial and error there. I've spent years trying to get to this point where I feel comfortable just navigating cybersecurity because it's really hard if you don't have like the, disability aids to help you manage it. So I think for people who are neurodivergent, it's just really important that you just try a lot of things. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. It was an experiment and you learned and you have new information. And now maybe you know what will work for you in the future based off of that, or what won't work for you in the future and what things you shouldn't necessarily waste your time trying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so to ask another question on this then, so for the longest time, I have someone that I've been helping to mentor, basically from my Instagram community, and she always speaks about having this limitation because she's also, neurodiverse. She has this limitation of being able to speak with people, and to network with people and get herself out there to communicate. In that case, do you have any guidance, tips, advice for that scenario?
Yes, I do, because I have also had that same issue. Like, there are a lot of people that just will not like you and they won't understand why. There's just going to be something about you that's abrasive to them, but you can use that to your advantage, because if you have a repelling aura to some people, you're magnetic to others. Your authenticity, if it shines through, will help so many more people than you know. It's okay if you rub some people the wrong way because of your communication styles, but eventually you'll find your tribe and your people who see you as a gift. And whenever people are neurodivergent, a lot of the times they have really cool interests and they see things in a very different way that other people don't think of. And a lot of times, some people don't like hearing about that in the workplace. Like, there's a lot of politics that you have to navigate that you'll have a really difficult time doing. But if you sit back and observe a little bit more and you volunteer to be the person who's documenting things, you won't have to interact with people so much, and you can kind of do it more on your terms, like strategic socialization, where especially if you socialize with people who are more like CEOs, because something very interesting that I found is that the people who really like direct and straightforward communication are CEOs. Maybe everyone else in the chain of command might want to be told what they want to hear, but CEOs and decision makers really value that clarity. So if you can socialize with people in a way that puts you into the room with those people, you will shine. And if you make an effort to try and improve your communication skills, that will go a long way as well. But you have to find methods where you're becoming a team player in your own way, in your own capabilities. Like, if you're an introvert, volunteer to take notes during meetings so you don't have to talk so much. If you don't like talking face-to-face to people, volunteer to write documentation so they have to email you and you have a paper trail for everything, or tell them that you have a bad memory. That's worked really well for me. People just stick to written communications for me, because I hate phone calls most of the time. I often struggle to talk to people. I struggle to understand what they're thinking, and it just throws me off. So just removing that entirely makes communication a lot easier. And if you want to know if something is abrasive, like if you're sending an email, run it through ChatGPT to see what the tone is, to make sure that it's all good. So yeah, I have so many tips for people like that.
Thank you. That's amazing. And I love the word you used there, strategic socialization. I love that. That's so cool. So cool. So now I actually want to ask you, you obviously came into security in a unconventional way. You did different things on your way into the industry. So if you could do this again with the intent of going into cybersecurity, would you take the same path, or would you change it up? What would you do?
I would change it. I would definitely change it. I think that the path that I took was the most practical. I got amazing experience. It was great, but morality wise, I'm not that person anymore. So I would go a different method. I would probably start out going through for an information assurance role, because I don't know how to code. So I'm actually learning that now. It's really hard, but it's fun. But I would probably go up through information assurance into the GRC path, because that's a great way to really see. It's a mile wide but an inch deep. So you get a great overview of all of cyber. you get a great overview of what things people have to secure, and then that will give you the knowledge on what things you can hack into later down the road if you want to be like offensive security. So I would probably take a different route and probably just go working a little bit more, but definitely starting a personal brand early on to keep up with like the things like how technology is changing and how the job landscape is changing now. I would definitely be learning in public the entire time. So I'd be documenting my journey, making write-ups of every lab that I did, and communicating that with the world. Because I feel like that is like speed running your impact and influence, and it's like bulk applying to like 1 million jobs if you get 1 million impressions per month.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it changed completely, right? It changed from cybersecurity people being like these invincible people living off the internet to like when you are out there and you're building your personal brand and you're communicating about your thoughts and processes and impact and labs and whatever you're doing in the industry or to learn towards working towards the industry, that actually has a huge impact on how hireable you are down the line when you apply for jobs.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely does. And I think the thing that hiring managers are more so looking for instead of like those concrete technical skills is a willingness to learn, the ability to communicate, and like empathy, really, because like ChatGPT doesn't have those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So then let's ask this question. So you've been in the industry for a number of years, right?
Yes.
Do you code?
So I'm learning. So I have coded.
But have you needed it before in your previous roles?
I have not needed it, but the things that I did, like I volunteered to learn a little bit of Fortran to work on this thing in the Air Force. We had a mainframe and punch card. So like the stuff that I learned is very, very old. And the programming that I did for that is like you can't even test people on it. So I've just learned the Fortran for that one special project. I have taught myself some Python to code my own crypto trading bots in like 2017. And then I learned enough coding to set up a node for Harmony One validator, which is like a crypto thing. So like all of the coding that I have done has just been for personal projects and then the Fortran thing that I volunteered for. But now I'm trying to learn C and then eventually Python because I really like the lower levels of abstraction. And it's really interesting to me to see like how the operating systems work and how like the programs that are like closer to the kernel communicate.
Awesome. And would you classify coding as a skill that is a must-have or a nice-to-have?
I think I see it as a nice-to-have kind of thing, but I'll make a caveat here. I feel like knowing how to code is an incredible deposit into your leverage bank. So I think if anything that makes you stand out amongst your peers in cybersecurity is an incredible thing to do. So I wouldn't say to not learn how to code, but it's definitely not necessary. It's great though.
Perfect. Awesome. I love that response. So now let's shift a little bit left field here to what makes you passionate and what makes you keep going in cybersecurity?
Oh, okay. So I love computers. Like being autistic and having ADHD, computers make so much more sense to me than people do. Like, I don't know why. I mean, I guess I do, but it's a lot of it just has to do with like the way that your brain works. I feel like whenever I'm looking at computers, I am understanding physiology of brains in a way and how they work and like what's your brain doing whenever you're creating memories? How does your brain retrieve information? And it's just very interesting to me. So I don't know if that answers the question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No, that definitely answers the question around, why you're passionate. And I laugh because I'm like, I don't know. I think even me, I think just in general, computers might make more sense than people just in general these days with how the world is going. But yeah, that was just another random thought. But now you have your own company. Can you tell us about that? What do you do? What is the company about?
So my company is kind of my pride and joy. I consider myself to be a cyber doula. That means like I try and help people get into cybersecurity, as well as I do independent consulting. So I did a lot of work doing like security, incident response, stuff like that for a lot of crypto projects. I really love educating the masses on cybersecurity, and I'm really hoping through my company and the various things that I do, like my newsletter, my deep dives, to try and shape the sociological aspects of cybersecurity, because I really do not think that there is enough emphasis on what happens to the people. And so one of the things that I really love doing is kind of teaching other people how to hack. It might not just be hacking systems, but I like to teach people how to hack things like, algorithms or something like that, because I was able to change my life just by changing the TikTok algorithm. So like if you use technology and implement it, you can really elevate your life in these ways, and you're doing it automatically. Like you don't even have to think about it. I mean, after a little bit of setup, of course, but automating those things, and you're like, to me, it feels more like automating your subconscious, because your subconscious is 95% of the decisions that you make. It influences them. And so 5% is like the conscious aspects of that. So one of the main drivers of my company is to try and get people to bring the unconscious to the conscious, so that they can improve their lives by getting rid of that negative programming. For example, like misinformation, disinformation, and just really bad news. For me personally, I don't love to watch the news because it's so detrimental to my mental health. Like I will follow it because I need to be informed. But my goal is to liberate people from like the chokehold that social media tends to have on them. So that would be things like curating your algorithm very, very intentionally, so that it only feeds you helpful, positive information that your highest self would enjoy. And it serves almost as like advice from your highest self, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm obsessed with changing how people see cybersecurity. I really want to make cybersecurity way more human-centric and way less corporation-centric. So a lot of my goals are about giving people the knowledge and the power to be able to liberate them from exploitative like work cultures, like to give them the leverage so that they can be like, I'm not going to work at this toxic environment. And then also changing the way that corporations are, like, this is a lofty goal. I really want to change the way that corporations are able to pay a fine and just have it all be okay after a breach. So yeah.
Wow. And I think that's amazing. It speaks to so much of how the cybersecurity is so unique and diverse as an industry. I mean, yes. What you're trying to do is really shaping the human aspect of it, and kind of the human narrative and the human approach to technology, to be informed, by cyber resilience. In essence, it's going away from corporate to like the human eye. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. I absolutely love it. I love it. So then let's speak a little bit philosophical. If you could say what you want to be remembered for. I mean, you have massive platforms, you have massive audience, you help so many people. What do you want to be known and remembered for?
Ooh, that is a really good question. I think I want to be known and remembered as a person who made people believe that they were capable of accomplishing their dreams. Because I feel like there's so many naysayers out there, and there's so many people, so many reasons why people can't do stuff. And I want to be the voice in the back of their head that's like, no, you can keep going. You can do this. Like, you're smart enough. You're capable. Your unrelated work history has a lot of value. It's an asset. It's not just a waste. I want to be the person who made people believe in themselves and simplify the topics so that they could actually connect with it in a way that made sense and made them more inclined to secure their presence.
Amazing. I love it. All right. So then, if you can tell us, what can we expect in the near future and the long-term future from you, from your company? What can we expect to see out there?
So right now I'm working on some educational content on helping people actually get like clarity on where they want to go in their cyber careers. So a lot of that is I'm going to be launching a course in the short term in like a month or so, and I'm going to be doing some workshops and stuff to kind of help people figure out what they're going to be doing. But in the long term, I have a lot of plans. I'm going to also be educating a lot of people on using their neurodivergence as an asset in cyber careers. I'm going to be teaching people all sorts of stuff about second brains and how to set themselves up for success, and very, very specifically, how to start their cyber careers while setting themselves up for future self-employment. So like entrepreneurship and consulting. So I'm trying to give people the foundations to where they can start it from day one and then eventually launch their own company to get away from, like the exploitative corporations and stuff who are paying people way less than they should be paid. So that's one of the things. And then in the long term, I just really hope to change cybersecurity and change how people see it. I really hope to get into like a lot more like hacktivism, not necessarily hacking people for the activism, but like some activism around hacking, trying to really change the way people engage with technology. I really want to do more work because I helped write some cybersecurity policies for NIST, and I'd really like to use those connections to form conversations with people and see if there's any way to like change some stuff. So I feel like that's very needed. Like my goals are quite lofty, but there's a lot coming.
Yeah, your goals are brilliant. Your goals are brilliant. And it speaks to the kind of conversation that we have here even it's about like taking those leaps, right? Pushing those boundaries, because if we don't push those boundaries, who's going to push those boundaries, And more so people like us pushing those boundaries who have different views, different perspectives, different narratives. I think it's so important. And I think what you're doing is so important. Even if you think of this skills gap, but then exploitation of the workforce, right? So there's this whole talk about the massive skills gap, but then if you look at the corporates, they just exploiting the workforce in corporate, in big corporations. So I think imagine empowering like newbies to start working for themselves, addressing, the knowledge requirement and kind of the gap and lack of knowledge we have in the industry, but with empowering themselves. I think it's a phenomenal initiative and objective that you have. And I'm definitely in full support. And I might even join your second brain training because we can all learn from that.
Awesome. Yes, I'm very excited because like this way of living has been very difficult to get to. It's taken me years and years of trial and error to get to. So I just want to simplify the process for everyone else. Like it was hard for me, but I want to make it easy for you.
Yeah. And that's what it's about, right? That's what community and network. Oh, and I forgot, I wanted to add around the networking side. I think that's one thing that's so undervalued in the industry is that in cybersecurity, actually, when you do make good connections, those connections are genuinely almost always ready to kind of help you in ongoing initiatives that you have, especially if they value you as kind of a trusted connection and ally of theirs in cybersecurity. So that's something that's often like people don't know that, but once you've kind of built your network in cybersecurity, you're almost supported in a way in the background and when you go and ask for help and support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where can people find you? Here's where you add your really cool hacker looking website, which I think it's really cool. I'm going to add some graphics onto that, but where can people find you?
So you can find me at my website, which is www.addielamar.com. You can find me at either of my newsletters. One is for career tips and spicy productivity, as they call it. And then the other one is it's called Cyber Bites. It's for deep dives about improving your life using technology and kind of liberating yourself from the exploitative systems. And you can also find me on Instagram at addielamar.sh.
Awesome. Well, Addie, I really have to say thank you so much. This has been an incredibly insightful and fun discussion that we've had today. And I think it's probably one of the most valuable for our audience to learn from. So thank you so much for joining and for sharing all of your knowledge, your insights. And I'm truly inspired, and I'm a huge supporter of what you're doing, and keep on doing it. It's amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate everything that you're doing here. Like this whole YouTube account is incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated, and I'm your host, Cyber Queen.